Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein was an adaptation that left me disappointed. I was disappointed. I'll explain why. I'm Harry Marks, film critic and the host of Let's All Go to the Lobby. If you enjoy this review, please give me a like and a follow. Frankenstein stars Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, who becomes obsessed with conquering death after his mother dies while giving birth to his baby brother William. Victor is then raised by his abusive father, played by Charles Dance, and studies to become a brilliant surgeon. But his experiments in reanimation get him expelled from the medical community after he partially resurrects a corpse using electricity. Luckily for Victor, a wealthy benefactor named Henrik Harlander, played by Christoph Waltz, comes along to fund his research, with the ultimate goal being to give the dying man a new lease on life. Harlander brings in his niece Elizabeth, played by Mia Goth, who happens to be engaged to Victor's brother William. Over the next several months, Victor builds the mechanism that will bring his ultimate experiment to life, a man made from the parts of deceased criminals and soldiers. But when Victor finally does bring his creature to life with a stroke of lightning, he quickly realizes the mistake he's made. It also forms a bond with Elizabeth, much to the dismay of Victor, who has fallen for her as well. Victor tries to kill his creation, but it survives and winds up hiding in the home of an old blind man who teaches him to read and speak. It's then that the monster discovers that all he wants is a friend, someone like him to share his life with. But when he tries to get Victor to create another creature, he is refused. What ensues is a game of cat and mouse, with Victor hunting his creation, hunting Victor. Let me just get one thing out of the way. Frankenstein is not a bad movie. It's an okay movie, but that's why I'm disappointed. I went into this film excited. After all, it has Guillermo del Toro's name attached, along with a stacked cast of actors and the same cinematographer who brought three other del Toro projects to life: 2015's Crimson Peak, 2017's The Shape of Water, and 2021's Nightmare Alley. This should have been a 5-star film. But there was one other name on this film that, from what I can tell, seriously hindered its creation: Netflix. While Frankenstein is draped in symbolic reds, blues, and greens, there's no mistaking its HDR-style look as belonging to the streaming age. But that's forgivable, as the film is gorgeous to look at, with some shots so striking they could easily be framed and hung on the wall, in large part courtesy of cinematographer Dan Laustsen. But while Frankenstein drowns in saturated hues that complement equally colorful performances from most of the cast, none of that lipstick is enough to cover up the very annoying pig underneath: the script. The film, while in some regards faithful to its source material, at least more so than its more famous 1931 counterpart, strays wildly in some key aspects. Elizabeth, for example, is engaged to William here, not to Victor, as she is in the novel, and this departure dramatically changes both the stakes at play and Victor's motivations for hunting the creature. There's also the addition of Harlander, who conveniently shows up just when Victor is in dire need of funding for his experiments. Speaking of convenience, how nice it is that Harlander is not only Elizabeth's uncle, but is also able to reunite Victor with his estranged brother so they can build the laboratory necessary to bring the doctor's creation to life. Changes like these, meant to streamline the narrative, also get in its way. Harlander swoops in as Deus Ex Benefactor to keep the story moving. Things happen to Victor as means for setting up the next scene, but nothing feels earned or as though choices have consequences. Those choices have already been made. And I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight the glaring flaw of Del Toro's screenplay: its character's complete lack of emotional intelligence. Victor pours his life into overcoming death after the loss of his mother, yet bears no resentment toward his brother for being the reason she died. After the creature comes to life, he then turns into the abusive father he had growing up, never truly coming to grips with the generational trauma that plagued him. Even when he loses people he's supposed to care about, we don't feel his pain because he's so wrapped up in his obsession and ego. Forget being likable. I'd settle for a character who was understandable. There's also the moment where Victor sees how broken this new life he's created is, but rather than try again, because of his ego, he simply gives up the dream cold turkey. There's no desire to do it better the next time, to show the world he's as brilliant as he thinks he is. He just stops. Every character plays one note for the duration of the film except for the creature, and they play it flat. Compound that with insultingly expository narration, dialogue that explains how characters feel, or worse, explicitly states how the audience should feel, and what we're left is with a gory, bloated episode of Wishbone without an adorable terrier telling the story. And that's where the Netflixification of cinema leaves us, wanting of vegetables in a sea of junk food. Frankenstein is a perfect chocolate cake, beautiful to look at, but nothing but empty calories. A movie must be more than pretty pictures on screen. Film is a narrative medium, and the story, the script, the dialogue, the interplay between characters, what we hear, must matter just as much, if not more, than what we see. This should not have been a Netflix film, or a streaming film at all for that matter. And my worry for future endeavors by any director, especially brilliant ones like Guillermo del Toro, is that the sight of that big red N logo is going to act as Hester's scarlet A, identifying the film behind it as being less than, and unlike Hester, with no chance of redemption. Where Frankenstein excels, however, is in its performances, most of them at least. Jacob Elordi is electrifying as the creature, pun intended. He is at once terrifying and sympathetic, and a bit unpredictable. Oscar Isaac is doing his best with the role he's been given, and he plays it well. With him leading the cast, Frankenstein justifies its title, whereas most other adaptations forget who the story is really about. Waltz is fantastic as always, but also underused, as is Ralph Ineson, who appears for a total of 5 minutes in what can only be considered a gross misuse of his talents. But then there's Mia Goth as Elizabeth. She is quiet and understated, but not because of a directorial or acting choice. Goth plays Elizabeth with almost no emotional range, leaving her one-dimensional character even more grating. I'm glad I saw Frankenstein on the big screen. It's a film that deserves to be shown in theaters, but that's not how most people are going to watch it. They're going to press play on their Rokus and Apple TVs, pull out their phones, and doom scroll while the movie runs in the background. Netflix has ensured the future of the movie-going experience is not one of nuance and subtext, but of Squid Game level attention competitions, and that means we all lose. Frankenstein, written and directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, and Mia Goth, is in theaters now. It hits Netflix this Friday. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time in the lobby.